Now, having good pike flexibility is so important when learning calisthenics skills. Whether it's L-sit positions, pike press handstand variations, or other strength skills. So today I'm going to show you how to take your pike to another level. We're going to look at flexibility, compression, and strength. Now there's a few different ways to look at the flexibility of this movement. Now the goal here is to have two long flat lines. So we have from the feet to the hip, and then we have the hip to the head or the hip to the hands. So the more we can lengthen both of those things and get them close to each other, the deeper your pike's going to be, the more usable it's going to be. Now when most people start out, they're going to look a bit more like this in this position. You're going to see rounding in the spine, you're going to see bendy knees. So the beginner that looks a bit more like this shouldn't be forcing this position too much. We need to really isolate the two components. So we need to look at the spine first, and then we need to isolate those hamstrings and calves. So for the beginner, I'd be isolating that single leg, trying to get into this position. So we've got the knee locked out, we've got a straight line from the heel to the hip. Then we can make that harder by leaning forwards into the position. If this happens, it's too hard. We need to make it easier by locking the knee backwards, keeping the spine nice and flat. Then we can progress to fingers on the floor, to palms on the floor, and eventually walk forwards. If you get to the point where you can walk forwards, this is a great exercise, but this is where I'd start to hit the two-legged version more frequently. And then for the person that is tighter, we also need to be working that upper body position. Quickest, easiest way to do that is hanging every day. So hands shoulder width apart, hanging on a bar, hanging out in that position, literally for 30, 60, 90 seconds in the position, just trying to lengthen as much as you can. Other options, foam roller, yoga wheels, anything to open up that thoracic spine, opening up in that position. This is a great alternative or an addition to the hanging. Especially a good one if you don't have anywhere to hang daily, because that postural extension or that postural tightening we get is being forced and locked in every day. We need to be doing something in the opposite direction as frequently as possible to combat against it. Once we can do the two-legged version, we're going to bend the knees, we're going to take the chin to the chest and rolling down through the spine first. So I'm working on that articulation of the spine till I get to the bottom. Then I'm going to lock the knees backwards, and then I'm going to extend as much as I can to that forward fold position. If I'm happy here, I could even do some bounces in that position. Basically just trying to lock out as deep as we can, trying to get that spine to lengthen, trying to get those calves and hamstrings to lengthen all at the same time. If this feels too aggressive, if you have any red flags with your spine, stick to those less intense versions I just showed. But if you're happy to push harder, increase it by adding load to the position, even doing bounces there again. It's pretty intense, but it will get results quickly, but obviously be careful. Now to really wind that intensity up, you can go into a dorsiflex position with the ankles. So winding up, bringing the toes this way. This is really intense in the calves, can be quite nervy. Get used to that in that position first. Add some bounces, winds it up even more. And if you're super conditioned in that position already, add that barbell in as well. Now that's obviously not the only way to stretch that range of motion. You can do it in lots of different ways. The best one for you is the one you're going to do the most. And once we have some range to play with, we can play with the compression. Now the compression is normally looking at bringing the legs to the torso or the torso to the legs by contracting those muscles that close that distance. So I can go into a position like this, so a seated pike position. I can go fingertips by the knees, and then all I'm going to do is sit nice and upright, but I'm going to lift the feet up as high as I can. Trying not to lean backwards. And what's going to police that leaning backwards is how far forwards my fingers are. But if I can take them past the knee, what I recommend you do is take the palms now to the floor and now see if you can lift up. That's going to be much harder than this position and police that leaning back more. Now, if you're going to train these lifts, I'd recommend high repetitions, even up to like 40, 50, even 100 pulses in that position. But get ready for some horrible clamping. But get ready for some horrible cramping there. And then over time, you can just work on getting closer and closer towards your feet. Other variations of that would be to go into a bent knee position first and then straightening the legs. So this is going to work more that rec fem, the hip flexor that also crosses the knee. We then have the static positions that are also going to work that compression and strength in the position. So that's going to be like your L-sit position. Now notice I'm doing this on the floor. There's a certain prerequisite to get into that position and hold it, which has a lot to do with flexibility. If you can't lift up in that position, then you need to raise your hands up to create some clearance, and then that allows you to bend the knees slightly or take the feet a little bit lower. I'm not a big fan of taking the feet too low. I'd rather have a knee bend and have this hip angle a bit more closed, and then over time you can look at slowly straightening the legs. But when you're starting out, you are going to probably need to start with the hands pretty high. And then a great exercise that combines the strength, the conditioning, so the compression work, and the flexibility is toes to bar. So you can do this in lots of different ways, but the most common way to do it would be from a straight body position here, come up, tiptoes touch the bar, and then come back down again. Try not to rock backwards. So you see them rocking back like that in CrossFit. That's a great way of getting lots and lots of repetitions. But if we're trying to really close the gap and improve on the position, you're better off going slow, trying not to rock backwards. So trying to keep more of an open shoulder position as the toes touch the bar and come back down again. So no momentum. If that's too hard, you could do a tuck version with eccentrics down, or just the tuck version. We can do floor variations, so starting in this hollow body position, slowly taking the feet to the hands, trying to keep the hip as low as possible so the toes come to the hands and back again. So what we don't want to do there is lift the hip past like that and raise it up high so my feet go way past my fingies. We want to try and get the fingers to come all the way to the hands. If that's too hard, you can hold on to something and use it as an anchor, and then try and get your toes to still touch the hands. Or you can do hands down to give a little bit of a push off. And then if you already have good range there, some good strength, and you're working things like press handstand, you might be able to do lifts in that position. Now there's loads of calisthenics skills that use that pike compression, that pike strength, that pike range of motion, but these are the main ones that people think about. So we have the pike press to handstand. We have the L-sit pike press to handstand. We have the L-sit to planche. And the pike skin the cat. So my flexibility today is this. So fingertips at 25 centimeters. Especially if you're new to it, I'd recommend measuring it on a weekly basis. And if you are new to it, you'll probably be able to get through a few centimeters every week. The longer you've been doing it, the harder it is to make those gains, but you've probably already gone down there quite a bit. So let me know down below what your measurement is. Now, if you'd like help with your coaching, with programmings, videos, etc., check out my app, link is down in the description. Let me know if you have any requests or feedback, and I'll speak to you in the next one.